I hope we're all good. I got a Q&A today. I got my Instagram to ask me a bunch of questions, so I'm going to answer them on video. I feel like it's a better format to get into detail around some of these questions where I might only have like one story on Instagram to respond to them. So yeah, if you don't know who I am, my name's Osman. I'm a professional rugby player. I also do online coaching and online strength and conditioning for other athletes like myself. So yeah, let's get straight into these questions. The first question here I've got from Jackson: daily diet? Question mark. So obviously the way I eat right now is very different to the way I eat when I'm out of seasons. So everything I do at the moment is more or less revolving around making sure I fuel for my training and also for games, as opposed to just training. So having the competitive requirements on a Saturday or a Friday means that I have to kind of like cycle things a little bit differently. So whereas, if I was just training, I would more or less just take a day by day approach. I have to plan ahead. So based on the fact that my games are on the weekends or at the end of the week, I will kind of like slowly crescendo up my carbohydrate intake for that, requirement of the amount of glycogen I'm going to need in my system to perform. So I'm probably looking at like a pretty normal Monday of eating for me would be something around 4,200 calories, something like that. Same thing for a Tuesday. Wednesday's a day off for me. So probably looking at something like 3,500 on a Wednesday, depending on my activity levels. Thursday, nothing crazy, probably just around 4. Fridays where I go pretty heavy. So a day before a game, you get a lot of people online saying you don't need to carb load that much, and maybe one extra carbohydrate based meal or portion in your meal will be sufficient. That might be true, but obviously for me, I don't know how many minutes I'm going to get on the weekend. It might be I play the whole game. It might be that I play maybe, I don't know, like 30 minutes max. So I think it's always better to prepare for like the worst case scenario, so to speak. And that's why I carb load pretty heavy the day before games. So 5,500 calories is a very regular occurrence for me on a Friday night or on a Friday. And then that last meal on a Friday night will be pretty big. And then game day, I'm not eating that much at all. I can't see myself getting above like 2,500-3,000 calories on match day. That's just personal preference. Everyone's different. Just for me personally, I really struggle to eat a lot on match day, and that's the science will probably back me on that. All my glycogen stores are already full based on the way I've eaten the day before. So as long as I'm getting a little bit of sugar in me, a lot of caffeine, and I've eaten well the day prior, I'm going to be fine. So that would probably explain from a calorie perspective that question. I've got another question here around diet. Bulk secret sauce from Harry. There's no secret, man. Honestly, like bulking's a funny one. I've been 130 kilos before, and I didn't do that in a clean way either. That was pure gluttony, just not being that locked in with my diet whatsoever. Still training a lot, but just eating like an idiot, really. And if you want to do it, like go about bulking the right way, obviously it depends if you're an athlete or not. I'm going to attack this from the perspective of an athlete. As an athlete myself, the worst thing I could do is put on more than like, if I put on something like, I don't know, over a month, over maybe like a 5-month perspective, I put on a kilo a month over 5 months. Jesus Christ, like that's going to ruin my performance. That's going to wreck me fully. My joints are going to feel awful. I'm not going to sleep as well. My repeatability of like high efforts on the pitch is going to go right down. I'm not going to be as fit just because there's more of me. So yeah, obviously sport dependent, lifestyle dependent, but low and slow. Low and slow is always going to be, better if you're an athlete than not. So some really easy ways to do that. Work out what like works for you in a week from a maintenance perspective. You can use an online calculator for that. Actually, I think what's better is you literally just log your food and log your weight over a week and see how that changes. Based on how you went that week, you then go, okay, cool, I'm going to add maybe 5% more food on 3 of those days and see how you respond. I think like kind of that call and response between your own biology is always going to be better than any template or calculation that you can do online. Of course, you can go, okay, well, put yourself in a 200 calorie surplus over X amount of months and you'll be fine. But calories are a funny thing. Like calorie labels are super inaccurate. They could be up to 40% off what is stated on them, and that can go plus or minus 40%, which is a nightmare. And also, people chop and change the way that they eat all the time. So if you are eating literally these same meals every single day, go ahead and calculate 200 calories of whatever those foods are, and yeah, manipulate your diet as such, because it will work. Whereas, if you're scanning like random meals all the time, which there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. But again, the fact that calorie labels are just so off so often, that's not a great strategy to manage your bulk. You're probably going to end up far off, your 200 calorie surplus target. So secret sauce, honestly, is consistently eating a little bit more than you need to. It's a really boring answer, but yeah, that would be my response. We now have the complete opposite question here. So Pascal has asked, what would your advice be for losing weight in competition? That's a great question, because that's something I have done before, and not in a healthy way, and I've also done it healthily. So first things first, you have to, before you even decide to do it, you have to like weigh up the cost benefit analysis of, is this even worth me pursuing? Like, is weight loss going to increase my performance? Obviously, I'm attacking this from a performance sport perspective. From a like lifestyle and like health and longevity perspective, absolutely, losing weight, assuming that you are carrying excess body fat, is going to be helpful. But when we come into the world of performance sport, well, particularly in something like rugby, losing weight can be the difference between you breaking through contact and you having to adapt your game because you're just not as big anymore. So yeah, the first thing that I do is go, do I actually even need this for a performance perspective? If that's purely an aesthetic goal and you want to just look better and look different, better, in parentheses, that's obviously dependent on like what you think looks good. But if you want to look different, but you still want to perform, you might want to have another think about that goal. But anyway, so assuming that there is a performance benefit to you losing weight, cool. Okay, so it's pretty similar to what I just said around bulking. I would recommend that you eat the same types of foods or the same foods very often, week in, week out. It sounds boring, but like it's also not. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to just eat like chicken, rice, broccoli every single meal for the rest of your life. You can stick to like these big foods like sweet potatoes, normal potatoes, rice, pasta for your grains, oats for your grains, and then go to like lean proteins. Have you turkey, 5% fat, beef mince, all the usual heavy hitters, chicken breast, etc. And you could just stick to that. That will do you so good. Again, find a week where you go, okay, cool, I'm going to eat all this food. This is exactly how I'm going to eat for the whole week. And I'm going to see what my body weight does in that week. Assuming that you don't add in too much extra, conditioning, extra workouts, etc. You can then go at the end of the week, okay, cool, this is how my body weight changed, and then make a difference based on the amount of weight you either lost or like didn't. So, the worst thing you could do is just throw in loads of extra conditioning for the sake of it. I don't necessarily think that's the way. Assuming you actually already, a competitive athlete, you're already getting a great conditioning stimulus from actually practicing a sport. And I assume that most people will be throwing in some extra conditioning anyway, whether it's on or off feet, to supplement, their performance. So, the answer is not going to be add more. Sometimes the answer is actually to increase, like, the amount of, okay, you could go steps, but just like discrete calorie burning. So, just steps is a great one. Doing dumb things like deep cleaning your place every day, and we'll have like just being more active, just instead of taking like instead of driving everywhere, take the bus. Simple ideas around just increasing like general activity levels. That's usually going to do you so much better than I threw in extra conditioning every single day, because I guarantee you, most people will crash and burn. And when you add in more conditioning, you're going to end up getting like bigger hunger spikes. So, you don't want to be in a position where you've worked your ass off. Your energy requirements are way more than, say, like a 300 calorie a day deficit, because you've ran yourself into the ground for like a week straight, for example, and you break your diet. So my advice would be low and slow. Don't look to add too much in to your weekly training schedule. And I think the last thing would be to like manipulate your carbohydrates in and around training. So that, I think people get that really wrong all the time. What you'll see is people have like big carb dense meals prior to training, and it's like no, like that's fine, but not everyone can train on a full stomach. I know I can't. So what I mean by that is, for example, utilizing things like bananas, honey in your coffee is a great one. I do that and it's brilliant. Even like just sweets, etc. That's not going to be a massively like popular choice, but one of my go-tos will literally just be like bagels with jam on it. If you watch my Instagram, you know that I'll put that on my story like pretty much 3-4 times a week. You need to make sure that you're getting enough sugar in and around training so that you feel sufficiently fueled for those sessions. The worst thing you could do is go, I'm going to start cutting my carbs down to XYZ. It might be that you manipulate your carbohydrate intake a little bit so that you can get your total calories down, understood. But the worst thing you could do is not fuel yourself for the sessions that you need to fuel yourself for. Again, we're performing. We're trying to improve our performance. So carbohydrates are the way in which our bodies utilize energy for high bouts of, for bouts of high effort exercise. So you'd be stupid to not take advantage of carbohydrates in their like purest, most easily accessible form, which is things on the high that are high on the glycemic index. For example, honey, maple syrup, jam, etc. Like all those like super sugary things. Use them before training. You're going to feel great. You won't feel like you're in a diet or you're in a cut. And yeah, just a cheat code really. And then obviously goes without saying, keep your protein high. I don't have to bang on to you about protein intake. Got another question. Where is it? Got lighter and moved from tight head to loose head and haven't felt as effective since. If that doesn't mean anything to any of you that don't play rugby, there's something called a front row. There's a scrum. In the front row, you have a loose head, which is on the left side, hooker, and a tight head on the right side. So what this guy has done is he's moved from the left side to the right. From tight head to okay, cool. So he's moved from the right side to the left, and he feels like his performance has been impacted. Well, if you've got lighter, this would touch on what the point I've just made is. How quickly did you lose that weight? Was it part of a structured training plan where you were still increasing your, strength and power, etc.? And if it wasn't, then I would question the way in which you've gone about the weight loss altogether. So this would then come back to my previous answer to a question. Is it even worth you from a performance perspective losing weight? I have played tight head at 130 kilos before. I've also played tight head at the weight that I'm currently now, which I fluctuate between 117 to 119, depending on how much food, water, etc. I have in me. I will pick this over that every single day of the week. The reason is because I got stronger over time. It was part of like my normal strength and conditioning was still great. I was still pushing myself to failure. I was able to do it more or less because I had like 9 months of no rugby because I just wasn't getting selected at my last club. And as a result, I had an extended period of time to get really fucking strong and also cut at the same time. So the answer to the question is more or less, okay, cool. Did you do it too fast? Did you lose your weight too fast? One, and two, which I think is probably also another thing, is how dialed in on your technique are you? So, going from tight head to loose head is accepted that loose head's kind of easier because you're only against one guy, but I can't do it. I've tried to play loose head before just in training, and it's like the worst feeling ever. I just fucking hate it. I will never do it. but you know, some of this is just teething issues. You know, you've changed position. I don't care if you're in the front row or not. It's a completely different position. It's really difficult. So maybe be a little bit easier on yourself around the fact that you're not feeling as effective. You're playing a different position. So that's to be expected that you're not going to naturally straight away do very well. But yeah, I would be dialing in obviously all my technical work, being really anal about the way in which I bind, where your weight's going, how you engage, etc. But obviously on a case-by-case basis, you're going to need a bit more guidance than what I can do on this video. I'd have to see footage, etc. But yeah, I've got like 3 questions here which are all the same. Dating advice, bro. Dating advice coming from you, the seasoned pro. I'm not a seasoned pro. Don't get dating advice from me whatsoever. Yeah, strictly strength and conditioning here. What would you recommend is the best gym split for a rugby player getting lean? This is from Tom. So obviously I've just covered getting lean in previous questions, so that should explain all of that for you. What would I recommend as best split? Well, the split's not really going to change too much. Like I said, the worst thing you can do is add in too much. So you're not going to go, okay, I'm cutting. Now everything's about to change. I'm about to do all this stuff that I wasn't doing before. That's a recipe for disaster. The boring answer is that things don't really change at all. You're still going to have to express, a lot of power. You're going to have to sprint every week, ideally twice. Work on your acceleration with like dedicated acceleration blocks, maybe before your sprint training or before your lower body sessions. You're still going to get a good lower body stimulus every single week. You're still going to get good upper body stimulus, whether that's push-pull, in a horizontal or vertical vector. And you're still going to do some form of like supplementary conditioning if you're not getting that, that enough of a stimulus from your rugby training alone. So the thing that probably changes is, again, with the diet, just not adding in too much. Don't go, I'm losing weight now, it's time to like throw in 3 extra conditioning sessions a week. Worst idea possible. So yeah, the split doesn't change. I'd still recommend people do their lower body sessions on a Monday. This is as far away as possible from match day, with still 1 day in between the game and your first training session for you to recover enough. So you still go Monday lower body and acceleration work if you can fit it in. If not, then Tuesday upper body with acceleration work, with team training. So you could tie that in before your team training. That'd be a really good idea. And then maybe some tempo runs afterwards. Wednesday you can go off, or you can throw in a little bit of easy conditioning, really slow, steady state stuff, or get yourself up to like 90% of your heart rate for around 4 to 5 minutes. That's literally all it takes. That's all you need per week. Thursday you can do some sort of power session. I actually prefer, not that I don't think they're good, I just think like with my clients that I've experienced, like just through working with part-time rugby players, the best option for those who are like, obviously you got a whole life, you got work, family, kids, etc. Best solution really is actually just sprint. Just sprint before your rugby training or after your rugby training if you can't get there quick enough to have a good warm-up to sprint. So get 1 to 2 speed exposures in there where you're working up to like, at least 85% of your max speed. That's going to be enough for you to maintain your speed. And in season, that's probably all we're trying to look to do anyway, because it's pretty difficult to juggle everything on top of playing. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. We've got, what's your favorite boots of all time? Funny you asked that question. 1 second. These are Adidas Kakaris. They're the Kevlar ones with the sock. These are discontinued, but I managed to find them on Vinted for £40. So I bought them straight away. Yeah, they're pretty goated. I've gone between like Mizuno's. I played in Mizuno's for the last 5 years, I think. Before that, I was using those boots, but they discontinued them, and the Adidas ones weren't as good. But I am actually now playing in Adidas boots again, and it feels good. Pretty much all my training shoes are Adidas, so it kind of works well for me. I've got one here. We've got 2 more questions I'm going to answer, and then we'll leave it there. I've just had a big injury that could see me out for a long time. How do I bounce back mentally? It's a great question. I've actually spoken to this guy, it's TJ. I've met him a few times. Good guy. So obviously, like, injuries suck. We can't plan them. It's really shit that you go from being able to do all these things to nothing at all, or just barely anything compared to what you were doing before. So my advice around that would be firstly, you have to frame it. You have to frame it correctly. So what is this? Is this like, am I broken, or am I in a period of time where I'm able to redefine who I am as a player and graft super hard so that I come back not just like I was before, but better. So I've always used injury times as a time to, one, reflect on how things have gone, and two, again, to like, kind of like in this alchemical sort of perspective, to become something greater than I was before. So obviously, breakdown leads to breakthrough, etc. It's a common pattern just within like life and existence. Shit things happen, but they make us better, because in retrospect, we needed the difficult things to happen so that we were either forced to change the way we were doing things, or we've been gifted time that we wouldn't have otherwise, a new opportunity to change ourselves and to become better. So, just some examples for me. I tore like a muscle in my neck. I tore my pec this year. I did like a minor calf tear. Like, I've used all these little moments of injuries to redefine what I was as a player. So I've gone, okay, you know what? I actually think I need to carry the ball better. So I'm gonna do things that are conducive to carrying the ball better. So that's why I started to, really hammer my acceleration. I remember when I fractured my jaw in 2021 in non-contact training, which was crazy. That was like me done with getting re-signed at Leicester Tigers. That was, a really difficult moment for me, where like I all of a sudden went from being on loan during COVID to not being able to play, and I didn't play for 19 months. Through concussion, etc. So that was a really interesting time and perspective for me. I gained a lot of perspective in that time period. And one of the things I realized was that I just, one, couldn't really tackle that well. And two, I wasn't fit enough. Like, I just wasn't. So I would always like slip away when it came to like maybe 50 minutes into a game. So obviously, if you know me now, I very regularly play full 80 minutes in the second division of rugby at my position, which is pretty crazy, and I do well. I'm going to get shit for that, but I do well. So the answer to me was like, okay, I need to change this perspective people have of me. People think I fall away in the 50th minute, and that I'm just not fit enough. So and my contact skills weren't good enough. So I hammered tackle work. I hammered conditioning. And I literally, for 19 months, just locked in to training. And it paid dividends, because I then went to Bedford and I was fit. And I was able to tackle. So, my answer to your question is redefine who you are as a player. Remember that it's only temporary, and something better comes as a result of it. So, you got to have gratitude for these hardships. And, injury is just such a good opportunity for you to kind of look at what you've done, think about what your goals are, and try and align yourself with the version of yourself that has already achieved that goal. So, hope that makes sense. Finally, we'll do two more. Finally, trained like a bodybuilder, but always played rugby. Will this help with ability to play? Yes and no. My controversial take is that it's not that bad that some people train like a bodybuilder and play rugby. Remember, like, most people are playing on a Saturday or Sunday, and it's a social thing for them. So assuming that you're going to rugby training twice a week and you are running and you're sprinting, the only thing that excessive bodybuilding is going to do is leave your legs very fatigued for the game. So is it going to help your performance? Probably not. There's diminishing marginal returns to really intense hypertrophy work, like real bodybuilding, where you're going to failure all the time. Is it better than what I see, where a lot of people just don't gym whatsoever? Well, yeah, it is. I would die on that hill every day of the week. My advice would be cut your leg volume a bit. By a bit, I mean a lot. Probably only take one, lower body movement to failure, probably a squat pattern, and do it around a Monday or a Tuesday. So you've got enough time for Saturday, yeah, to be fresh. And sprint once a week. If you throw those in, your upper body's probably not going to matter that much unless you play in the front row. So obviously, again, like just kind of make sure that your training is going from loads on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday to pretty much nothing other than team training on a Thursday and zero things on the Friday, so that Saturday you're good to go. And then finally, why my 1 rep maxes? What are my 1 rep maxes? James has asked that question, right, James? So I've never actually really done 1 rep maxes on anything other than bench. I've done 180 on bench. I think a year ago. My estimated 1 rep max is like a lot higher than that now, so it'd be interesting to see in the off season what I get. But some numbers for you: I've squatted 225 for 11 reps. I've squatted 200 for 18, 250 for 6 reps. Those all come to mind as pretty good, I think. So I actually squatted 200 for 10. I think I could do way more than that now. Deadlifted 200 for 20 reps a couple of weeks ago. And then bench 180, military press 100 for 2 reps, weighted pull up. I think I've done 183 kilos total body weight, including my own. Total weight including my own for a single, which is pretty cool. And then 145 kilograms total weight for 8 reps after a bunch of working sets. So yeah, those are my personal records. And then Bronco, because we may as well do the Bronco too. Best ever Bronco, 5 minutes 13, which I would like to get around. I'd like to get sub 5:10 next summer. So I'm not going to train specifically for it, but I'll just get aerobically more fit and do that. But yeah. Anyway, I think that's it for today. That was solid questions. Grateful for all the questions. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And yeah, till next time.